This What's Working with Cam Marston podcast is brought to you by Stella Artois Beer.
What's Working with Cam Marston is brought to you by Stella Artois Beer. Stella Artois is a perfect beer for celebration. Nothing caps off a big sale, hitting your incentive goals, or a profitable quarter like a round of Stellas. Brewed first in 1708 as a special Christmas brew, today Stella is a gift for everyone to enjoy year-round. Stella Artois. Find it wherever fine beer is sold.
Welcome, everyone, to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. What's Working is the show designed to uncover the trends shaping the workplace, the workforce, and the marketplace around us for the benefit of businesses across the great state of Alabama. We try to find guests that can talk to us about these trends in such a way that you and I can do something with these trends, apply these trends, or apply the solutions to the trends that our guests mention that will make each of us and our businesses a little bit better at whatever it is that we do. And you have to notice, if you're a regular listener of the show, that I didn't say, welcome to another edition of What's Working, because I'm proud to say, and there are a number of announcements that we're starting today's show with, that as of this broadcast, we are now being broadcast in Huntsville, in Birmingham, and in Montgomery. It's been a goal of ours for a while, and this broadcast should be the one that gets us into those marketplaces. If all goes well and the creeks don't rise and all those expressions, then the audience is in Huntsville on WBHP at 102.5 FM in Huntsville, in Birmingham on WERC at 105.5 FM, and in Montgomery, WACV 93.1 FM are listening to What's Working in their marketplace. I'm proud to be there. We set out a goal years ago to have a footprint across the state of Alabama, to bring you the trends shaping businesses in such a way that they will benefit businesses in the state of Alabama. And for those of you in Huntsville, Birmingham, and Montgomery, I welcome you. I hope you'll be listeners. The show has existed in Mobile now since 2018. We're well over 200 episodes now, and my goal is to continue on that trend and bringing this content to your markets like I've been doing here in Mobile. The show is going to be a good one today. It's a topic that resonates with anyone in the workplace, and that is the thought of retirement. And it's not just the financial components. In fact, our show has no mentions of financial components in it because that's not the angle to retirement that we're taking on this show. It's about purpose in retirement. And in a moment, I'll have a man named David Topus on the line. David and I met way back, and I'll tell that story, or he'll tell that story, one of us, during the interview with him. And we've reconnected, and I've learned that his new passion has something to do with what I think my listeners need to know about, and that is retirement, and specifically purpose in retirement. So the first big announcement was a statewide footprint. The second big announcement is we're welcoming aboard a new advertiser, Bryant Bank. Michael Holland has been my contact here in Mobile, Michelle Smart in Tuscaloosa. And when I told them about the show, Michael's a regular listener, and introduced the show to Michelle in Tuscaloosa. They were interested, and I'm proud to have them on. Bryant Bank is all in on the state of Alabama. It's a bank designed to serve the people of the state of Alabama. I'm proud to make them a part of the show, and I hope the show makes them proud for their affiliation. And I'm not sure if in previous shows I mentioned it or not, but we have a new advertiser that started a week or so ago, and that's Trey Langus. Trey is a business broker, does a wonderful job. And I've told him, Trey, I feel like the marketplace is so ripe for the change of hands of businesses. One generation selling or one business owner looking to transition out. You'll hear Trey's advertisements in the show today. You've heard him in previous weeks about buying and selling business. Let Trey help you out. If you need financing for such a thing, perhaps you call the people at Bryant Bank. Before we go to break, it's also important that I mention Sandifer Wealth Management. At Sandifer Wealth Management, they believe retirement planning is an essential part of your financial wellness. Working together, Sandifer will help you clarify your expenses, prioritize your goals, and build a portfolio of assets that sustains a long and fruitful retirement. Retirement, a big theme on this week's show. I know Mark Salyers. I know Jamie Sandifer. I hope you'll give them a call. Sandifer Wealth Management. You can find them online. If you wondered if you found the right website, they're on Old Shell Road in Mobile. When we come back, David Topus. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. What's Working is brought to you by the Alabama Center for Real Estate at the Culverhouse College of Business at the University of Alabama.
Hi, I'm Michael Holland, Mobile Market President for Bryant Bank. Bryant Bank was created and exists today to serve the people of Alabama. Our focus is on serving and elevating the people and businesses in our great state, and the team we've assembled reflects that. Our bankers and service providers aspire to be legendary, whether it's your financial plan, instant debit cards, online and mobile banking, person-to-person payments, Apple Pay, or controlling your debit cards with the swipe of a button. Growing communities across the state of Alabama, and certainly here in Mobile, deserve the support of a bank who calls Alabama home. We have a history of putting care into action, and we're all in on Alabama, and I, as the Mobile Market President, am all in on Mobile. We are the local bank for you. Stop by our Mobile office today at 6151 Airport Boulevard, or one of our 3 offices across the bay to find out what unbeatable service and legendary results are all about. Bryant Bank, Equal Housing Lender, member FDIC.
You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. What's Working is presented by the Alabama Center for Real Estate, housed in the Culverhouse College of Business at the University of Alabama. On with me today is David Topus. He's a nationally recognized business innovator, communication consultant, coach, and founder/managing director of Revision Retirement. When I saw David's description of Revision Retirement and looked through the website, I thought this guy's going to answer some questions that have been presented on this show that no one has really been able to address yet. David, thank you so much for your time. Welcome to What's Working.
Thanks, Cam. Pleasure to be here.
So let's begin at the top. What is the condition of the retirement world today? What's going on out there?
Well, it's complicated. You know, on one hand, if you consider 65 a magic age of retirement, it's booming. You know, there are already tens of millions of people 65 and over. And every day in this country, 10,000 more people turn 65. You know, and that's been going on for a number of years. And all indications are, you know, demographically, it will continue for many more years. So, you know, if you think about 65 as the magic age, the retirement world is booming. Now, on the other hand, many people are retiring earlier, you know, 50, 55, 60. And are they really retiring? Well, not necessarily. Now, they may be leaving a corporate or professional career, but they're staying active. They're finding new things to do. They're finding businesses to start. They're finding gigs to get involved in. So retirement today isn't what it used to be. It's really a mixed bag. But if we think of the more traditional definition and use 65 as the magic number, for many people, it's a time to kick back, relax, and do very little after decades of, you know, waking up early and getting to the office or workplace and being responsible to perform to some kind of expectation. And, you know, the notion of doing nothing or, you know, doing nothing of great consequence, very appealing. Unfortunately, it doesn't always hold up.
Yeah, that's the story that I hear over and over is there is this great eagerness for retirement. However, once the transition to retirement has occurred, and once they've played, let's say, 20 rounds of golf or traveled to the 3 or 4 places that they've wanted to go, the thrill of retirement becomes the boredom of retirement. In fact, here in our great state of Alabama, where the show is broadcast, Nick Saban was quoted, the head football coach at the University of Alabama was quoted recently in saying, "I can't imagine going into the miserable void of retirement." Now, David, before we continue, I want you to know who our listeners are, because that's where I want our conversation to be directed. What this show attracts is a 45-year-old or older male in an influencer position in his business. Are there females listening to it? Yeah, but only about 25% of our audience is female. So these are active doers in their business who likely aren't yet thinking about their own retirement. It's certainly on the horizon. And I want us to keep him, primarily male, in mind as we go about this. But going back to your expertise, I remember reading that COVID accelerated retirements. Those who were eligible for retirement looked into the eyes of COVID and said, "Hey, if I can get out of here, I am. The workplace is going to change. I don't want to have to deal with masks. I don't want to have to deal with this. There's a lot of political correctness going on in the workplace that I have a hard time with," many of them may say. So they bugged out. What has COVID done to the retirement world? How has it changed retirement?
It has, clearly fueled the great resignation, as it's called. In fact, during the pandemic, a disproportionate number of older workers retired. According to Goldman Sachs, they estimated last fall that more than half of those who had left the workforce during the COVID era's great resignation were over 55. And this is a significant reversal from the pre-COVID sentiment, because based on a Gallup study, in the years leading up to the pandemic, many Americans said they wanted to work well past the traditional retirement age. So what happened was, we have found that
it's reversed. It sounds like it's reversed. Yeah. The trend has reversed. Is that correct?
Yes, we have found that, in fact, many more people are saying goodbye to the workaday at a much earlier point. And I think that what we're reading about in terms of the quote great resignation, it kind of makes it more easier. Let's just say easier. It gives people permission, makes it more socially acceptable to call it quits at this time. So there are a number of forces and factors that are coming together in the pandemic period.
David Topus runs a website now. There's a number of things of your bio, David, that I want to include in our conversation. But the website is called Revision Retirement, an effort you took on to kind of guide people in their retirement. Let's talk about the greatest surprises, let's say, people have in their retirement. What are those?
Well, I think the biggest surprise is that, not having to go to work every day and not having responsibility is going to be satisfactory and sustainable. In one of the landmark studies by retirement guru Ken Dykewald, it showed that retirees with a strong sense of purpose are happier, healthier, and live longer. And while they do derive their strongest sense of purpose from spending time with loved ones, they also face the challenge of how to use their newfound time to be purposeful and productive. They don't just want to be busy; they want to be busy in meaningful ways. And by the way, Sigmund Freud, he really had it right when he said, "Love and work are the cornerstones to our humanness." And so, I think the biggest surprise to your question is that, kicking back and doing very little is going to be a formula for happiness. And the fact is, it really isn't. It can be, and it is for some, but it isn't for everyone.
I want to hear how the Revision Retirement site works. I want to hear the origin behind it, why you created it. Goodness knows there's a need for it. But let's go back to our listener real quick and talk to him and say, okay, he's 50 years old. He's 55 years old. Let's assume 55. He's got 10 more years. Is there a And we talk about love and purpose. And incidentally, I was watching a Frasier rerun last night, and he quoted the same Sigmund Freud line.
Okay. Yep.
So what does a 55-year-old need to be doing right now, other than financial stuff to prepare for retirement, to kind of get themselves in the mindset of retirement right now?
Yeah, sure. Well, that's a great question. If you're running a business, if you own a business and you're running a business, and that business is providing you with, satisfaction, fulfillment, gratification on a psychological, emotional level, then you may want to continue doing that. If you're at a point where you've had enough of it and you want to leave it to someone else or sell the business, then you will be faced with a period of, many more years. And then it's a matter of, do you want to continue to be productive and purposeful? Maybe find a different business. Maybe invest in a franchise. Maybe get involved in a nonprofit board. Maybe you want to write a business book. There are many things to do in those latter years, especially if you're coming out of a successful entrepreneurial career.
So, and is that what Revision Retirement does? And I want to get into this further after the break. Is that what Revision Retirement does, is takes one of these, can we say, aimless or drifting retirees and kind of prods them into purpose?
Yeah, well, so when I started Revision Retirement, it was based on a recognition that there wasn't a lot out there to help guide and inform retirees' thinking around what to do next, especially how to do it. There's a lot out there about the financial side of retirement. There's a lot out there about the lifestyle side of retirement, but there wasn't a lot out there about what I could do, and do is the word, what I could do to stay productive and purposeful and meaningful, to get challenge from, and many of us live on the challenge, especially if you're an entrepreneur and you own a business. That's what you do every day.
Let's pick it up there after break. I'm on the line with David Topus. His website is called Revision Retirement. When we come back from break, I'll tell you about his book and how he and I met. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. What's Working is presented by the Alabama Center for Real Estate, housed in the Culverhouse College of Business at the University of Alabama. We'll be right back.
I'm Paul Lewis, General Manager of Roy Lewis Construction. Many of our commercial buildings you drive by daily on both sides of the bay are the fruits of our client relationship since our beginning in the early 80s. It is our mission to bring value to our clients, from retrofits to ground-up construction and everything in between. We have more advocates than any of our competitors who have been in business twice as long. Same with repeat business, same with referrals. Find us online at roylewisconstruction.com and let's talk about your next commercial project.
Hey, this is Cam. Thanks for listening, and I hope you're really enjoying the podcast. Do me a favor and search for Cam Marston on your social media outlets and like us or follow us or whatever is the right thing to do. Also, if you know others who'd benefit from the podcast, please forward it on to them and encourage them to listen. If you're so inclined, we'd love your rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Those ratings matter. Finally, don't be a stranger. Email me with your comments, your feedback, your thoughts, your show ideas, whatever. Cam, C-A-M, at cammarston.com. I'd love to hear from you. Again, thank you very much for listening. Now, back to the show. We're back. I'm Cam Marston. What's Working is presented by the Alabama Center for Real Estate, housed in the Culverhouse College of Business at the University of Alabama. My guest today is David Topus. I'm going to pick up a little bit on his bio. He began his career in New York City with Ted Bates Advertising, after which he joined the Wall Street Journal's advertising sales department. He was then recruited by the Washington Post as a member of their elite national sales team. In 2021, David launched and is now running Revision Retirement, a company and website devoted to helping soon-to-retire and retired professionals find ways to be purposeful and productive. In 2012, he wrote a book, Talk to Strangers, How Everyday Random Encounters Can Expand Your Business, Career, Income, and Life. And the irony of that book title is, David and I met on a plane. He turned to me, we were strangers, we talked, and I introduced him to the literary guy at Wiley, John Wiley and Sons, that got his book printed. Is that the story, David? That's the way I seem to remember it.
That's spot on, Cam.
Yeah.
You know, and our connection and follow-up relationship is a perfect example of what that book's all about. You know, it's all about who you're going to meet in the most random way and how you can connect with, you know, complete strangers and turn those connections into purposeful and productive and meaningful relationships. And that was certainly the case here.
Yeah, it led to a book, and it led to now you being broadcast across the great state of Alabama talking about Revision Retirement. Tell me, David, let's go back to that. Where did your idea come from? Where there's a seed of an idea. You recognize this retirement issue, but it had to lead to a spark, which was your first move to create something. Tell me about that.
Well, I have, over the years, started a number of businesses and brought to the marketplace a number of products and services, all in one way or another related to helping expand or transform people's lives or people's businesses or their careers. And when I was researching what do I need to do to retire? When should I retire? How do I know if it's the right time to retire? 99% of what came up was about the financial side of retirement and or the lifestyle, but mostly financial. And I looked a little deeper and I saw that while this population is booming of retirees, many of them still wanted to stay active. And in fact, a survey, age wave survey that Merrill Lynch did, a few years back showed that over 7 in 10 pre-retirees said they want to work in retirement. And nearly half say they have either worked or plan to work. And 40% of folks 55 plus are working. And that's up from 32% 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. So according to the study, we've not had such a high percentage of people 55 plus working since the 1960s. And, you know, the reasons people are working are different for different people. And I think we're going to get to that part of the
I definitely want to talk about that, but let's talk about your typical customer. Let's say I were to reach through the website from your side and my hand comes out the screen to somebody staring at your site, manipulating the site, finding information. Who is he or she? Who is your typical customer?
Yeah. So it's typically someone who is either soon to retire or has recently retired. And more often than not, it would be from a professional or corporate career. One person that comes to mind, he had a very successful career in the publishing business. And when he got up to the retirement age and stage, he had a plan. And his plan was to spend his days sailing on the Long Island Sound with his wife. He had done well financially over the years, and he planned financially for his retirement. But the economy threw some curveballs.
Yeah.
And he found that he wasn't as prepared as he thought he was. So he pivoted. He landed a part-time job in his prior publishing career. And then he found himself getting involved in local politics, which led to him running for office. And he won a seat on the board of the council. And suddenly he was in local politics. So, you know, it could be somebody who has a plan, and wants to validate that plan. It could be someone who doesn't, who knows they want to do something, but they don't know what that is. Or someone who's just, completely lost and, heading into this major life transition without a lot of structure or guidance.
What are these retirees worried about? Is it safe to say that most of retirees' worries are money driven? Yeah. You talk about a purpose and family and love and purpose, the Freud quote that you shared a moment ago. But that's kind of more passion driven. What are the worries? And I'm guessing money's at the top of the list, outliving your money. But beyond that, what are the worries?
I think one of the biggest worries, Cam, is will my spouse be able to stand me being around the house for more than 4 hours at a time?
Yeah.
I haven't done that in 40 years.
Yeah, exactly. And there's some funny stories about that. And I think I saw a Fidelity piece of data. I used to quote it in my seminars that something like 65% of male retirees were excited about spending more time with their spouses, and only about 25% of female retirees were excited about spending more time with their spouses. There's a complete mix match there. And it's
it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me.
So they've got money retirees. They got worries about their relationship with their spouse if they're married. What else?
Well, I think that, one of the biggest concerns is about losing my relevance. Will I be relevant to what's happening out there in the marketplace? If I'm not part of it, how do I make sure that I keep my finger on the pulse of what's happening in the marketplace so that when and if I do want to re-engage in something, especially something productive, will I still be relevant? And then of course, I'm concerned about losing my edge. Again, if I'm not staying challenged and stimulated, the brain can atrophy. And so I don't want to lose my edge. I want to stay sharp. And then of course, a big issue is losing social connections. For many people, their work is their connection to social life.
Yeah.
Workmates, colleagues, clients, vendors. There's a whole range of folks that provide social connection. And so that's a concern. And it actually, by the way, is in many cases a surprise. People don't think about that until they're in that place. And then they realize, wow, so many of my social connections were through work.
Right.
Of course, losing a sense of purpose, which is kind of foundational to what we're talking about. And then, the health issues, right? I think that for some people, the newfound retirement time that they have can be devoted to, reinvesting in their health and wellness. And for others, it can start to compromise their health and wellness. So it really depends on how you approach it. But I do think that health and wellness can be the loss of health and wellness can be a concern.
You remind me.
And by the way,
go ahead.
Let me add one more thing. And that is that the evidence really continues to grow that working longer is better for mental, physical, and financial health. There was a study by a journal called SSM, Population Health. And it found that postponing retirement until at least age 67 resulted in a 1/3 reduction in cognitive decline compared with those who retired at 61 to 67 had a greater cognitive decline.
Yeah. You remind me of a conversation I had with a guy not long ago who reminded me back to the time of the Great Recession. So not Great Resignation, Great Recession, the year 2008, 9-ish. And the people, whoever they were, the experts that were writing at the time, said once you're out of the workforce for 6 months, you lose your workplace skills, and more importantly, you lose your Rolodex. After about 6 months, the Rolodex begins to vanish. And the concern at that time was people who were being laid off due to the Great Recession and encouraging them to get back on their feet and get into the workplace, because after 6 months, your value really begins to plummet. And this conversation that I was having is in relation to COVID times and the people that have stepped out of the workplace due to COVID and the challenges that they may have getting back into the workplace. What you're talking about is something very similar with retirement. Now, when we come back from break, I want to talk about a couple of things that my financial services colleagues have told me. And that is, with health and medicine going the way it is easily possible that we could live longer in retirement than we did in work. Then we would actually be retired longer than we were employed. And their position was this has financial services or financial implications all over it. But I think it also has social implications, just like you suggested. When we come back from break, let's build a picture of a retirement catastrophe. And then let's build a picture of a retirement success and how to prepare and get ready for that. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. I'm on the line with my old friend who I met on an airplane years ago, David Topus. His website is Revision Retirement. He's helping people get a grip on their retirement lifestyle. What's Working is presented by the Alabama Center for Real Estate, housed in the Culverhouse College of Business at the University of Alabama. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Michael Holland, Mobile Market President for Bryant Bank. Bryant Bank was created and exists today to serve the people of Alabama. Our focus is on serving and elevating the people and businesses in our great state, and the team we've assembled reflects that. Our bankers and service providers aspire to be legendary, whether it's your financial plan, instant debit cards, online and mobile banking, person-to-person payments, Apple Pay, or controlling your debit cards with the swipe of a button. Growing communities across the state of Alabama, and certainly here in Mobile, deserve the support of a bank who calls Alabama home. We have a history of putting care into action, and we're all in on Alabama, and I, as the Mobile Market President, am all in on Mobile. We are the local bank for you. Stop by our Mobile office today at 6151 Airport Boulevard, or one of our 3 offices across the bay to find out what unbeatable service and legendary results are all about. Bryant Bank, Equal Housing Lender, member FDIC.
We're back. You're listening to What's Working, presented by the Alabama Center for Real Estate at the University of Alabama. David Topus is on the line with me. In 2012, he wrote a book called Talk to Strangers, How Everyday Random Encounters Can Expand Your Business, Career, Income, and Life, published by John Wiley & Sons. He's now running a website called Revision Retirement. It's devoted to helping soon-to-retire and retired professionals find a way to be purposeful and productive. David, prior to the break, we had a couple of things on the agenda. However, I think there's one that should preempt the question of a beautiful versus a poor retirement, and that is, what are the factors that go into people deciding when to retire?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's different for different people. I think, sometimes we're motivated in our lives by going towards something. And sometimes our motivation is to get away from something. And then in case of retirement, sometimes we actually have no choice because some are being forced to retire either by their companies or in the case of certain government workers by law. Quick example is we have a client who's an ex-FBI agent. And when you work for the FBI, you have to retire at age 57.
Yeah,
it's one of the few jobs that when you're hired, you're also told when you'll be retiring. But others retire because there are factors within their company or organization that are changing in ways they're not on board with, and they're at an age and a stage where they feel they've had enough. So whereas they might have stuck it out a little longer, circumstances in their work environment are providing that extra motivation to call it quits. And then there are those, of course, who've had their eyes on retirement for a long time. They planned for it financially, and the time has come, so they make the break. But I think that the news we're seeing about the Great Resignation, which we talked about, is fueling some of it and giving people, permission hightail out of the company and do something else. And by the way, there are so many options today in the entrepreneurial space. It really makes retirement or that, third act even more appealing and more feasible.
What would cause someone to retire? What is your experience and what causes people to retire early, other than a package being offered by the company that's fruitful for them? Is there something that makes people step out early?
Well, look, and our audience here today are, seem to be entrepreneurs who either run or own their own business. So it's less of an issue because they're the ones who create that corporate culture. They're not the ones who are victims of corporate culture. But for many people who are working in companies, large and medium and small, they're frustrated with it. They're aggravated. They're dealing with an environment that is not necessarily positive and happy. So, when you are in that situation and you realize that there are options out there, even if those options are to do something on your own, and there are more of those than ever, that is a motivation to hightail out of that company and enter the ranks of retirement, but realizing that retirement isn't what it used to be.
Right. It's going to last longer. It may be more expensive. You may have a lot of time on your hands. Golf isn't what is cracked up to used to be, all those metaphors or those historic dreams of retirement. Most people are realizing this isn't what it cracked up to or what it was cracked up to be when I thought of it years ago. Now, prior to the break, I wanted you to build for me a recipe for disaster for retirement. So if we were to put a big red X over a retirement plan that essentially says, don't do this, what is that?
Well, not being prepared financially is clearly a big issue.
Sure.
And the fact is that a study by the Harris people, they did a Harris poll, showed that less than half of the respondents who were in the 55 plus age range were putting aside enough money to retire. But beyond the financial considerations, for those who want to continue in their careers, it's dangerous to think that getting rehired at 55, 60, 65 or older is a slam dunk.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a recipe for disaster. Think I'm going to leave this company and I'm going to go find another job at another company, but I'm 60 years old. I mean, you have to have realistic expectations about the job market.
Right.
And, ageism is alive and well out there. And it's not something you can't overcome and work through, but it does require a special plan. It does require a special consideration. You don't just put yourself out on the market like you're 35 or 40 years old. You're going to face some resistance and some headwinds at that age. So, again, recipe for disaster. If you're someone who wants to stay in your career, stay in the same lane, it's to assume you're going to be as marketable and hireable at 55, 60, 65 as you were at 40 and 45.
Yeah. So let's flip the coin. The best, tell me the story of the person who's best prepared for their retirement. And then I want to talk about the website and the services that the websites offer. So best scenario preparing for retirement. What does that look like?
Well, look, it's being prepared mentally and emotionally for what's basically one of the biggest transformations of a lifetime.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, throughout our lives, we reinvent ourselves and we transition. We go from early in our lives, we go from being a student to being an employee, and we go from being single to being a spouse. We go from being childless to being a parent, and so on. Those are life transitions. Yet retirement is one of the biggest transitions we'll ever make. And there's very little out there to help. Right? So it's important to accept that things will be different. And I hear from many folks that they really find themselves bored and seeking more. They thought it would be great to kick back and get away from that workaday world, but they're missing that sense of purpose and focus. So it's really about being prepared mentally, emotionally for the change that the transition will entail, and having an idea about what you might want to do and to be willing to research and explore what those things could be.
So I have had these conversations, David, as you know, you and I have talked offline about this. In my work with, particularly in the financial services industry, as I talk with financial advisors about trying to help them build their business with their clients. It's not the only business that I consult with, but it's one of the ones that I consult with more frequently. They're about half of my business. But their conversation is exactly that. They can get their clients to retirement financially in a way that if they manage their expectations, they will not outlive their money. But many of these advisors find that their clients are suffering in retirement with a lack of purpose. And when you reached out to say hello and I clicked around on your Revision Retirement website, I thought this is maybe part of the answer. This is something that will help these people. Tell people who may be out there listening that are in somewhat the same boat, looking at retirement, beyond retirement, what they'll find at your website. First, is it revisionretirement.com?
Yeah, revisionretirement.com, one word.
And what will they find when they go there?
Well, what they'll find that they probably won't find anywhere else, at least to this degree, is guidance and information and resources and support for making a purposeful and productive, creating a purposeful and productive direction in their lives. So we have identified between 13 and 19, between up to 19 different things that one can do in that retirement zone. And it's everything from, getting a certification in some field of expertise to, buying a franchise or starting a small business or becoming a coach or maybe being an independent consultant, write a business book, be a freelancer or a solopreneur. You can be an interim executive or be a gigster. We call it a gigster, get into some kind of gig.
Right.
Joining a nonprofit board or even maybe teaching at the college, the local college. I mean, these are all great opportunities and really worthwhile directions to go. So the site includes a lot of information of not just about what you can do, but how to do it. And we also have a small team of highly qualified coaches that can be engaged in helping to think through and talk through and evaluate all those options. But the site is clearly, it's not about the lifestyle of retirement. It's not about the financial of retirement per se. It's really about finding a purpose and productive direction.
That's what I hear.
I believe we're providing that in a very useful way.
That's what I hear coming through your words, David, is the site is designed to help retirees and pre-retirees determine a purpose in this new stage of life. David, thank you so much for your time. Again, folks, the website is revisionretirement.com, all one word. I think you can reach out to David on that site if you want more information from him. David, again, thank you for your time.
Been a pleasure, Cam. Happy to help out, and all the best in the meantime.
Nice to reconnect. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. We'll be back for final comments. What's Working is presented by the Alabama Center for Real Estate, housed in the Culverhouse College of Business at the University of Alabama.
At Roy Lewis Construction, we're in the business of adding value. Whether it's working with you to meet your unique business needs or making investments in our community in lasting ways, providing unparalleled value and quality in every commercial construction project. When planning your next commercial project, reach out to Roy Lewis Construction. We'll pair you with a designer that best suits your project needs and work with that designer to balance the best architectural outcome with the best budget outcome. Find us online at roylewisconstruction.com, building legacies one relationship at a time.
This is Jay Stubbs with Concourse Financial, and when I'm not working on an insurance plan with a financial advisor, I'm listening to What's Working with Cam Marston. Now back to the show.
We're back. What's Working is presented by the Alabama Center for Real Estate, housed in the Culverhouse College of Business at the University of Alabama. I want to highlight what I heard David say, and I want to offer some observations on that. the significance of retirement, et cetera. This is a big subject, and David certainly gave us some insight into it. This is a subject that could be the topic for an entire show, not one broadcast, but an entire show talking about finding purpose and maximizing retirement. But David has built a business, Revision Retirement, that helps. The purpose of the business, ironically, is to help people find purpose. And I'm a big fan of somewhat spiritual writings and things of that nature, and I don't want to go off on the deep end, but purpose is a big part of all these messages, having a purpose in life. And it seems to me that many retirees suddenly step out into retirement and realize it's not what it's cracked up to be. We said that during the show. And the dreams of golf and travel and Winnebagos and things of that nature tend to get kind of thin, kind of stale after trying it for a little while and realizing that just the consumption of time with no purpose is not very fruitful. And the listeners that this show is designed to cultivate, to find and attract, are people who are purpose-driven people, influencers in their business. Doesn't mean they're the boss, doesn't mean they're the entrepreneur, doesn't mean they're the owner. It means that they have some sort of influence. And that influence, at the core of that influence, is purpose, is to help grow the business, grow the talent. We replayed Billy Duran's episode of Threaded Fasteners last week, and his purpose is to motivate and to inspire people to serve one another. But that purpose is a driver in any chapter of life. And the business, when we go to work, our purpose is often driven by the motives or the mission statement, if you will, of the business. And suddenly it's over. Suddenly you enter retirement and it's over. Now, I'm 15 years from retirement myself, but I do wonder what my purpose will be after retirement. This radio show could certainly go on in my retirement. It doesn't require a physical stress of me. And if I keep my faculties about me, I could continue to do it if I so choose. And I feel like the purpose of the show is to help listeners, people like you, understand these trends that are influencing the workplace, the workforce, and the marketplace, and do something with them. But so I know that if I wanted to continue, I would find purpose in doing this. But it's something that I think many people who are approaching retirement aren't prepared to face, and they don't realize the significance of it. All the world's great literature throughout generations, centuries, have talked about having a purpose in the life, and retirement is one of those moments in time where we can lose our purpose. We have purpose when we're raising kids. We have purpose when we're in the workplace, and it all goes away in the moment of retirement. And unless we're careful, we're adrift. And like I said in the show, something about the Alabama football coach saying he can't imagine retirement in that, he called it like a desert or something like that. His purpose is football, and outside of football, he doesn't know what he'd do. So I think it's a conversation worth having as a workforce, as a leader, perhaps, if that's you, internally to yourself. How can I make sure I'm not a burden to those around me when I retire? And the best answer to that is to find a passion, to find a purpose, and to pursue that. Don't keep showing up at work long after you've retired trying to hang out with people because you've lost relevance to them. And certainly don't become a burden on your spouse. We hear about big transition points in life. One is when the kids leave home, and one is upon retirement, that marriages often begin to fail and break up a little bit. And I don't want that to be you. All right. Again, for my Huntsville, Birmingham, Montgomery listeners, thank you so much. We look forward to providing you content in your marketplace. I hope you'll adopt us like Mobile has. We're very proud of our relationship with our listeners in Mobile, and we want to do the same for you. If you want to hear this show again, go to whatsworkingcam.com. whatsworkingcam.com. You'll find the show as a podcast as well as previous shows. I encourage you to subscribe. I encourage you to rate us if that's what you want to do. Rate the show as a podcast. You can go back 4 years of content there at that site and see the different people that we've interviewed, and find me on social media. Cam Marston. You'll find me in many locations as Cam Marston and then the numeral 1, Cam Marston 1. And finally, email me with thoughts, ideas, etc. Cam, C-A-M, at cammarston.com. Show is produced by John Thompson with Ion Digital. Every time I say that is a day that he has had to spend editing this show, not drinking beer on Horn Island on his boat. Sorry, John, this is the price of growth. What's Working is presented by the Alabama Center for Real Estate, housed in the Culverhouse College of Business at the University of Alabama. Great supporters of the show. Grace and Glaze, very important to the success of the show, and I'm grateful for their support. We'll have another show next week, everybody. Have a good week.